like I said, or like I was introduced, the Lesser Slave Watershed Council has been a WPAC officially since 2007, and then in 2008 I started working with them. And our watershed's a bit unique in that the lake is in the center. It's kind of like an upside down umbrella, that's how I explain it. And the Lesser Slave River is the only outlet of our watershed, and that attaches our basin to the Athabasca, as I show here. So there's our little watershed sandwiched in between the mighty Peace and the giant Athabasca, but we are our own entity, and we have the biggest lake in the province. So the Lesser Slave River is what I want to focus on for this discussion, because there's a lot of water history, water management issues and stuff around this river. So the Lesser Slave River is this little guy here, and that's about 72 kilometers from the outlet of the lake to the Athabasca River. So that's the little river I'm going to be focusing on. So I just wanted to give you some facts about the Lesser Slave River. Originally, this was one of the first routes into the Peace region and the Lesser Slave region back in the fur trading days. The Hudson Bay Company was in there first, and they did establish transportation routes because the river was able to facilitate transportation of those big barges to get the furs out and the supplies in. So that was a really good transportation route. The Lesser Slave Sub-Watershed itself has a few tributaries, but the majority of the flow in that river comes from the lake because the lake's such a huge water body. It's a slow-moving, relatively flat river. There's not many rapids, and this is kind of where the issues came from back in there. As soon as people really settled the region. I mean, the lake is in the middle, you get a big rain event, within a week it's in the lake, out of the watershed, right? So lake levels have always been fluctuating, and there's been management issues around that. This river is actually a good migration link between Lake Athabasca and our lake. There have been fish that were tagged in Lake Athabasca found in Lesser Slave Lake, so it is an important migratory route, and it is important to maintain that because that's many, many, many miles of connectivity. And I just wanted to state that we talk about the weir in meters above sea level. 575.5 meters above sea level is the weir level. And we either talk about the river flow in meters per second or the lake level in meters above sea level. So if I say those terms, CMS is cubic meters per second, and if I say meters, that's meters above sea level. So the Lesser Slave River has some water allocations and licenses. The town of Slave Lake withdraws their water for the town's use, treatment and use from just right near the weir, actually. The municipality has rural users who have water allocations for dugouts and livestock and personal use, and then the municipality also returns treated effluent into the river. Industrial is mainly pulp production is a big one. We have Alberta plywood, Van der Waals. There's 4 mills in Mitsue industrial area. And then agriculture isn't even registering on here. So very, very slim little amount. There's maybe 1 allocation specifically for livestock. And other industrial, there's Tiger Calcium, and they have allocation to withdraw water to make chemical, calcium related. And oil field injection, that is held by one company, that's Penwest, and they have a huge water license on the river, so they're definitely a key user. And these numbers, the pie chart is from our 2009 water management plan, and this data came right from the department, so it might be a little bit out of date. It's a few years old. So as in terms of how much water is allocated out of the river, 13.5 million cubic meters of surface water is allocated, but that's not the actual use. It's hard to track actual use because, well, industry or self-reporting and pulp and paper, they take it, they use it, and then they return it. So actual use is hard to track, but this is the allocated amount is only 1% of the mean annual discharge of the river, so we're not over allocated by any means. And there's also some groundwater licenses. We can't forget to talk about groundwater. Mainly for oil field industry, and a couple for livestock, and 1 for campgrounds, and Tiger Calcium is in there as well. And I said, I was speaking with somebody from Penwest just before this presentation, and he said, can you please take out that pie chart? I did have another pie chart in here. He says, that doesn't really reflect our future water use, because the oil industry is being so innovative in reducing their water use that our old data still showed that they would be projecting an increase in water use, but in reality they're projecting a big decrease in water use. So I just wanted to mention that, because Penwest does have the biggest water allocation. And then there's the question, how much water needs to be in the river to maintain the health of the aquatic environment, health of the aquatic ecosystems. So here's my history lesson. We were established as a fur trade post right at the town site of Slave Lake because of its location, and these people who originally settled it were the first people to experience the fluctuating lake levels, river levels, flooding, dry years, that sort of thing. Usually it was high water level that was an issue because people want to be nice and close to the lake, and then high water comes and oh crap, we're going to be flooded out. So as early as the 60s, the government of Alberta was looking at, what are we going to do? There's people settled here, this is an issue, we need to do something, we can stabilize lake levels, manage river. So as early as 65, the provincial government, I'm not sure what their department was called at that time, we'll just stick with Alberta Environment. They were starting to do studies and evaluate what could be done on the river to, reduce this. And so they announced in the 60s that they were going to take on a project called the Lesser Slave Regulation Project, which involved a few things. Oh, first of all, here's the area we're looking at. This is where the town of Slave Lake is now. This was in the 70s. This is where the town of Slave Lake is now. The big old lake is over here. And this river here, well, here is the Lesser Slave River. So the weir is now right about there. This is the Highway 2 bridge if you've ever been there. There's a big campground there. There's a boat launch there. And it's all developed along here and here and here now. So this is just kind of get you familiar with the area. North, south, and so this is the before. You can see that there's natural meanders and the old oxbows and stuff. So this is the main area that we're talking about here. So the regulation project began as, well, it had several parts. There was 8 channel cutoffs because a straighter channel gets water out of the lake faster, right? So we will reduce the risk of having major flood events. So these 8 cutoffs were in the first 24 kilometers of the river, which is the flattest. Further down, there's the Salto Rapids and a few other rapids where the water moves a little faster. But these 8 river cutoffs, channel cutoffs, were to basically aid getting water out of the lake faster. And also the weir construction, and I got some pictures here from the archives, thank you Rod Burr, from the government, and you can see here this is when they were building the weir. They diverted the entire river. Actually this piece, the river was diverted so that, or this piece was a new channel built. The river was just flowing as usual, and then when this was done they changed it to go through here. So you can see right here the water flows this way, right to left, so the fish ladder's on one side. Fixed crest weir across here. This is cement and iron and rock and riprap. Pretty serious structure for how much water is going through there. And this was led by the Department of Environment. So here's kind of as they were building it. Here it is blocked off. This was blocked off while construction was going on, and the weirs in here. And when they were done, instead of the water going around here, they opened her up, and it goes straight through here, and then eventually they block this off here. And well, this is an old picture; it's all different. Looks different now, but you can see the same. This is the boat launch. This is where those 2 soil dams were. So this is right when they were done, and after they opened her up. And then this is the air photo of after. So you can tell the river's a lot straighter now, right here. So the water comes out of the lake and through the weir, and this is actually blocked off here. So the old channel is just kind of an oxbow. It's a wetland, marshy area now. So after the project, of course, it was monitored and evaluated. The fish ladder, is it functioning? Is the weir doing what it intended to do? So the department was monitoring and doing updates. So this information is right out of an environment update. It was effective in reducing the severity of flooding. High water levels do not occur as frequently or severely on the Lesser Slave River because that weir is holding back quite a bit of water during high water times. Low water levels are not as extreme because, on the other hand, when water's high, it's holding some back. It's not leaving as fast. So when water's low, it slows it down as well. It did reduce the overall fluctuation in lake levels. And flood protection was provided for quite a bit of farmland around the lake, and on good years it's accessible. You can hay it, you can get swamp hay out of it. On bad years, it's bad for farmer years. It's too wet and it's just kind of a wetland. But on the other hand, we have experienced low water levels as well. So you can see from these pictures, When the lake gets low, the lake's on this side, the weir kind of acts as a dam. There's no water flowing over, which is bad because immediately the DO is dropping and the people downstream in Mitsue Industrial Park make a lot of money per day, and they get a little excited if they cannot withdraw water or return flows to the river. So this is an issue. So this is 1999. The MD and Environment came up with a temporary solution. They built a few of these siphon devices. You can see here, this is one guy standing on top of a siphon on top of the weir. A couple more guys standing out here on the ice, and I'll see them tied to a rope. Crane lowering this siphon. I mean, it was an emergency response, but obviously not a long-term sustainable solution because it's middle of winter, there's ice, it's a weir, everybody knows a weir is a danger zone. So this low water happened 3 times when operational responses had to be put into place. So as early as 1999, Alberta Environment and the Town of Slave Lake, MD, everybody was kind of excited about this, so we needed to initiate some sort of management response. But along with the water level dropping, there's also another problem. Natural process of Lesser Slave Lake, it moves because all the tributaries come in and there's one outlet. So just as a process, sediment will drop out as it reaches the outlet here. Because the water is slowing down, the sediment drops out, and when water levels get low enough, the sediment acts as a natural dam. And before there was a weir, historically, the channel has completely sedimented off, and that was a natural weir, right? And at that time, there was no downstream users, so there was no implications with DO and water use and stuff. And this is Devonshire Beach here, really nice beach along Lesser Slave River. So it's kind of a 2-part problem. The water level gets so low that the weir is a dam, and the channel sediments off, so water is not even reaching the weir. So management issues. So to get the channel clear and get water flowing, dredging occurred a couple times. The municipality was the group who applied for and had to obtain permits from Navigable Waters, DFO, and the provincial government because it's bed shore, navigable channel, fish habitat, pretty much everything. So they have had to dredge twice in the past to clear that channel to allow water to reach the weir, and then one time that fixed the problem. Once the water was reaching the weir, it was flowing over again, and that was that. But the other time is when the siphons had to be put in. So from 2010, that was the last time a dredging program was implemented. That was where these pictures are from. This is a little dredging boat, and the cost to the MDs and the downstream stakeholders was $300,000, and the Department of Environment does not share any costs because they're not in the business of maintaining navigable channels and that sort of thing. So Penn West, Town of Slave Lake Pulp, and the MD all chipped in, covered those costs a couple times. So this is what the dredging boat looks like, and this is a floating suction hose. This is a giant pump, basically, compressor pump. It pulls this hose along behind it, and it's a floating hose because no sediment or materials can be just pumped and moved. You have to take it out of the channel and more pictures. And put it on a big soil liner here, and then move it with trucks and stuff. But since this happens in the winter, we never have low water issues in the spring or when the tributaries are flowing. But fall is dry in some years, and midwinter is when the lake eventually gets low enough that these are issues. So we sent this little guy out first to break some of the ice up. Pictures aren't that great. They're taken out of one of our board members' helicopters, but they're good, and I appreciate that. And the boat also helped by pushing the hose around to help the dredging boat maneuver it. So I didn't actually get to go see this in action, but I did get the pictures. And you can see here the dark, I kind of made the blue follow the darker little channel. You can see that's where it's deeper. The boat went back and forth through that area with the hose, pumping the material out onto a soil mat like this. And had to be hauled away, and I'm not sure where it actually ended up. It's probably some nice sand. So with the weir and the sedimentation issues, there is a need for a water management plan. This river has issues, right? And there's downstream users and a municipal water supply risk and all that. So we needed a water management plan to answer the question of how do we provide an adequate water supply while protecting the aquatic environment. And the plan outlines some recommendations that would move these things forward and deal with the low flows in Lesser Slave River. So as any plan, there's a technical assessment done. And this was I just want to mention that this was in 2000, and the Lesser Slave Watershed Council was not officially a society or a WPAC until 2007. So, because a lot of people have asked me, so how come you guys have this water management plan, like kind of before you did any other WPAC work? And I said, well, it wasn't initiated by us, it was initiated by a need, and the Department of Environment were the leads on this. And as the Watershed Council kind of came into their WPAC role, we played a role, and Rod Burr was a big player in this whole project, and bringing it to our board and all this, and developing the recommendations with approval and consultation and that sort of thing. So it was initiated in 2000, and then, yeah, the Watershed Council was just in our early stages but involved. So these are some of the technical tasks that were a priority. We have to evaluate present and future water uses. What are the in-stream flow needs of this river? What do we need flowing in the river to maintain the aquatic environment and keep everybody happy? Then there's the sedimentation issue, how do we deal with that? And then the different ideas on how we can modify or configure the weir. There was a few different options we looked at. So our plan recommendations: maintain a minimum of flow in the Lesser Slave River. 6 cubic meters per second is the interim value that we're working with. This is an interim IFN value, but once the work is completed and we have a water conservation objective, this might change, but this is a conservative number. I think it was 4 was the lowest we wanted to go, and so we don't want to obviously be at the lowest. Low flow operational response procedures with partners. When water levels drop below 576.2 meters, that's just kind of getting low on September 1st, which is fall, when there's less and less water inputs coming in from our tributaries. We need additional monitoring. We have to, project, is this winter going to be one of those winters when people are out there dangling, putting siphons up? So when water levels look like they're going to get low, we need to implement more monitoring and more making sure that we're on top of things. And we have a watershed hydrology model that was developed with government funds and through the WPAC, and we can use this to project with historic data and climate data. We can project what we think the lake levels are going to look like. So that was a very useful tool in this plan. We also, one of the plan recommendations is to maintain a navigable channel at the Lesser Slave Lake outlet. This is obviously not an Alberta environment action item because that's a navigable waters issue, so that's a federal thing. And also installation of long-term water quality monitoring stations. Our little watershed doesn't actually have a long-term river network station anywhere in it, and we've been harping on it for years and years and years, so that is in our plan as well. We need long-term monitoring, and with this focus on healthy lakes and stuff, I'm hoping that more is going on. I do want to say that though, recently there has been more medium-term monitoring done by Alberta Environment more further downstream on the Lesser Slave River, so it's not like there's no monitoring being done. And completion of the IFN work, so that's in-stream flow needs assessments, it's water quality modeling, habitat assessments, benthic invertebrates, all that kind of stuff. And that's a partnership between the government, the WPAC, and any stakeholders who have a vested interest. So where we're at now, we did submit the plan in 2009 to the Department of Environment, and we did put our name on it as a Watershed Council plan, even though it was initiated and led and most of the work was done by the Department of Environment out of the Peace River office. I'm not going to take the credit for the work they did. I will full on say that when I came along into this position, this plan was pretty much in a final draft form. And it was me catching up on, okay, we have a water management plan, all right, now what? So we submitted it, and it was approved by Alberta Environment on July 29, 2010. I have a little excerpt here right from the letter with a signature. So an approved water management plan. And since then, the plan was approved, and then the department said, okay, well, we got to look at this weir, we got to figure out the best way to modify it to maintain lake levels, to provide in-stream flow needs and keep the downstream users happy, while at the same time, basically we don't want to alter it in a way that's going to majorly fluctuate lake levels. So with the hydraulic model we have, with 40 years of data and a couple engineers and a couple biologists, they came up with there was a few options looked at. One of them was, simple, let's put some gated culverts in, but then it's the issue of, well, who gets to run these culverts? Who decides when they get open and when they get shut, and how much water do we let out? And we could just tell that that was not going to be an operationally easy solution, because somebody's always going to think it should be higher or lower, and open it, shut it, open it, shut it. So we need a permanent solution. It is a fixed crest weir. It doesn't move, so we need something along those lines. So The favorable design, I really should have had a slide of this, but the blueprint is very complicated to look at and I didn't really think you'd gain much from it. So basically what they're going to do is take out the fish ladder that you saw in the first picture when there's no water in it, take that whole fish ladder out and make it a V structure below the weir level so that even when the water's lower, the V is always below the level of the weir, so water's always flowing through. The weir won't be down. And then to compensate for opening up a bigger channel and letting more water out, there will be an addition of 29 centimeters on the top of the weir. And with the hydrology model and the new design and stuff, this was modeled to like say what are the impacts going to be over time, and they're minimal, very minimal. And we also wanted to make sure that by removing the fish ladder, which is questionably effective as it is, we want to make sure this new channel can definitely allow for fish passage. So the Fish and Wildlife guys did some homework and they modeled it. They figured out how far the littlest fishies could swim in one burst, and they made sure the plan included putting enough boulders and riprap and things to slow flow down enough so that even the littlest fish could get back and forth. And you know, Fish and Wildlife people were involved in the design and approval of this plan. And it was brought to the Watershed Council board and brought to other stakeholders, of course, before they settled on the final design. So we were happy, our board was happy, yay, the downstream users weren't going to have to worry about their water use. And then we were ready, as in infrastructure, Alberta Infrastructure is the body or government department in charge of physical projects like that. They have the equipment and the manpower that do the projects, obviously led by the Alberta Environment Plan. So we were basically ready to go, and equipment was there, and then there was an appeal to the approval by a First Nation in our watershed because they had concerns, and they have every right to be concerned, right? So the process was kind of halted, and then Alberta Environment took the time to meet with them to explain the process, to explain the research, and just, you know, say this is what we're doing, and, you know, make sure they understood. And now the appeal has been withdrawn. It's in the process of being withdrawn, so the project can continue. We did make sure that the approvals were 4-year approvals, so rather than they expire the next year and it never got done, they're standing approvals so that, you know, you don't have to go to DFO now, Waters, Environment, and everybody every year if it expires. So when the problem is though, ideal conditions for modifying the weir are when the lake is really low. So the last few years have been relatively wet in our watershed. Pretty muddy, pretty wet, like the lake level's been high. We haven't had low water issues since 2010. So it's obviously not as hot of a topic right now, but if water levels were getting low, that would be when people started getting excited, and also when it's best to do the project because there's less water coming out of that lake that we're going to have to divert to modify that weir. So the last I heard from Abdi, who is in charge of these sorts of projects at Environment, he said the project is scheduled to continue when optimal lake conditions are present, which aren't anticipated to be this spring. The lake's high enough. Probably not this fall because we have a huge snowpack in our watershed. So we're looking at potentially spring 2014 or fall 2014 because it's either spring or fall. The middle of summer is not really. So yeah, we wait for the right conditions, and then we hopefully everybody has their ducks in a row, and when it happens we can just get it done. So where we're at now, like I said, we're working with ESRD to implement the weir modification. We're also working to complete the in-stream flow needs assessment work on the Lesser Slave River. As it is, we have a complete water quality model. We have relatively good water quality data. We've done surveying and 2D modeling for habitat assessment on 4 segments, well not 4 entire segments, but 4 segments that are representative of the different river reaches. And we have partners at Fish and Wildlife taking care of that. And monitoring has been increased, like I mentioned. There's medium-term monitoring being done on the Lesser Slave River now. So yeah, like I said, we have not had to initiate the low flow procedure since the 2010 event because water levels have been relatively high, which is good. Because people sure get excited and it comes back to me, and I don't know what to say about that. I can't manage lake levels. So the municipality of Lesser Slave River is still the lead organization who must obtain all the permits to do dredging. ESRD assists with this process and helps facilitate it and helps them out with the permit, well, the government permit, but there's also now Waters and DFO. So the municipality is working on getting long-term approvals, like say an approval that says when this condition occurs we need to dredge, and it's kind of a standing approval, so they don't have to go through all that every time because they had to hire a contractor to assist them through the approval process. So they're, Yeah, like I said, uncertainty as to monitoring, but like we heard from Bernie Huey this morning, we have some new and exciting things coming for monitoring in the province, so I look forward to that because I am very attached to Lesser Slave Lake, and it is the biggest accessible lake in the province, and we do need to, you know, take care of it. We need to monitor more, but, you know, hopefully this focus on healthy lakes and the water conversation will be good for Lesser Slave Lake. And I mean, this is just one of the things that our WPAC is doing and what I chose to focus on here because it's a water management issue. But we are also working on the next phases of our planning, which would include branching out into the entire watershed to develop with our stakeholders an integrated watershed management plan, which is probably a multi-year project, lots of collaboration, stakeholder engagement, educating people about water management and what we're doing in Alberta land use framework. So we're hoping that this year we don't have our funding. We haven't heard what our funding is from the government yet. As Minister McQueen said, the budget just came out and we're still looking at that. But when we do know what we're getting, we're hoping that we can complete a terms of reference for an integrated watershed management plan in this year. And we have, you know, we're going to advocate for more monitoring. In partnership with monitoring branch of the government, I've kind of been taking on some small nutrient monitoring projects, and we've got a little partnership going there where I'm the field staff and they do the data control and hold the data for me, and it's set up as a government project. So it works well that way because they don't have the field staff to commit, but I can because I'm there. And then it's, you know, the data is collected in accordance with GOA standards and it's put in the database for all of Alberta for public use. Education, awareness, stewardship, all important to WPACs, WPAC collaboration. We're doing all kinds of WPAC stuff, but like I said, if you want to know more about that, I can tell you about all kinds of stuff that we're doing. And then my last slide, I was trying to be funny. Let's keep in mind that this project happened in the 80s, and I was born in the 80s, so if you ask me questions about back in the day, I'm probably going to have to defer them to somebody else in the room who I know has more knowledge than me. And I thought I'd throw in a few cute little pictures from our watershed here. That's my wiener dog. Pretty much every picture I end up with from the watershed, she sneaks in there somehow because she's always with me. And then I thought this one was cute. It's got a duck and a beaver waiting for spring there. So that's what our watershed's going to look like right away. So